2,300 miles apart, and somehow the loudest voice in this pregnancy is neither of the two women carrying. That's the part that keeps tripping me up. Two babies on the way, one man ducking a cheek swab like it's a subpoena, and the person driving the conversation on July 20th isn't the mother, isn't the father, it's the grandmother, who's already booked her seat in the delivery room for a baby that hasn't been paternity tested yet. Let me reread my own notes on that. Yeah, the grandmother of a maybe baby is on stream telling the world the birth certificate is going to trump the DNA. That's where we are. Y'all who ride with the team already know the drill. Tap the like, pull the subscribe if it's not already, and flip the bell on so the next receipt drop doesn't get buried under whatever else the algorithm's serving today. Real quick, then we're in it. Here's the ground floor, dry as I can keep it. Johnathan Michael Porter, the artist Blueface, is currently expecting a child with girlfriend Nevaeh Akira, an announcement the couple made public in February 2026 with the two positive tests photo op. Around the same window, a second woman, Rela Coleman, going by Rela Baybee, surfaced publicly claiming she was also pregnant by him, a claim the Shade Room reported and Rela herself confirmed in July 2026. Nevaeh is having a boy. Rela is having a girl. The girl, per multiple accounts, including a close family friend confirmation, is being named Rela Karlissa Porter after Blueface's mother, Karlissa Saffold Harvey. Karlissa, who spent months mocking Rela's complexion, has now flipped and publicly aligned with her. The catalyst for this week's noise? A live stream where Whack 100 made a joke about Rela's mother's appearance. That's when Rela stopped whispering. Sitting one desk over from that brief is Whack 100 himself, Cash Whack 100 Jones, the manager of record who has spent the better part of a decade steering Blueface public posture from Cash Money West through the MILF Music LLC formation window California business records list under Blueface's own name. Add to that the Los Angeles County Superior Court venue where the earlier Cruzean rock paternity chatter first ran through family law channels, and the specific docket on the seized royalties matter, the Jacqueline Martinez versus Porter defamation judgment TMZ published in June, and you have the actual four-corner room this week is unfolding inside. One manager, one county, one docket, one matriarch. That's the map. Let's put the exhibits on the table one by one and just read what's on the page. Nevaeh Akira and Blueface, February 2026, joint pregnancy announcement. 2 tests, 1 frame, captions calling it their first child together. TMZ ran the same footage the same week. That announcement is the anchor date every subsequent claim gets measured against. Hollywood Unlocked, April 27th, 2026, posted this in their own words. Hashtag Nevaeh Akira plans to take a DNA paternity test to put all the baby daddy speculation to rest. Sit with that for a second. The mother of the publicly claimed child is the one announcing the paternity test, not the father. The mother. In April, 2 months after the joint announcement, Rela Coleman surfaces. The Shade Room. Mid-2026, a woman named Rela Coleman is alleging Blueface got her pregnant after SM asterisk Shing unprotected at least twice. By July, that allegation converts into a confirmed pregnancy, Rela stating publicly she's expecting a girl and is willing to test day 1. And this one you have to read twice. Complex, June 11th, 2026. Blueface music royalties seized to pay Soulja Boy's baby mama $123,000 after defamation judgment. TMZ same week filed the ruling itself. Every ASCAP and BMI dollar rerouted to Jacqueline Martinez because he ignored the suit. That's a default judgment. A default judgment means he didn't respond in time. He let the ruling walk in through an open door. June 6th, 2026, separate filing, mortgage company states Blueface hasn't been making payments on the house. Foreclosure paperwork initiated. Whack 100 has said publicly on stream that Blueface is in debt. Rela says he told her the number himself, and she's been quoting a figure north of 20 million when she talks about it. Between the seized royalties, the foreclosure filing, and the complex reported judgment, the paper does back the shape of what she's saying, even if the exact ceiling isn't nailed down in one document. Rela's own statement, the one that reframes the whole conversation. Paraphrasing from her IG stream this month, she's not waiting on him. Blood draw, cheek swab, whatever the lab needs. She's ready. She's also on record. Captured in a July 14th breakdown by an outlet covering the case, saying the baby's full name is Rela Karlissa Porter. Hot New Hip Hop, filed in the same week the royalty seizure hit the docket, states plainly, Blueface has been ordered to hand over his music royalties after failing to respond to the Martinez defamation complaint. Different outlet, same posture. Nothing softened. Nothing hedged. A flat sentence that reads like a filing summary, because it is one. Half a shrug from the desk. Moving on. All Hip Hop, covering the Rela Baybee escalation, reports she confirmed the pregnancy on Instagram Live and stated she would submit to a paternity test the day the baby is born. Read the verb choice. Not offered. Submit. That's the language of a person who already knows a lab is coming and wants the record to show she walked toward it, not away from it. One word reaction for me on that one, noted, XXL, July 15th, 2026, Blueface mother Karlissa Saffold appeared on Instagram Live to say she supports Rela Coleman's decision to move forward with the pregnancy. Sit with the timing on that one. July 15th, which is one day after the breakdown surfaced the Rela Karlissa Porter name reveal. Karlissa's public alignment lands the day after her name lands on the unborn child. That's the sequence. That's what the paper shows. No commentary attached. Pass 1 doesn't editorialize. USPTO records list a trademark application under the mark Blueface in the Entertainment Services class, with a filing history that shows an office action response deadline in 2026, publicly searchable in the USPTO TSDR system. The application status matters here only because ownership of the mark is one of the residual assets outside the ASCAP/BMI stream. Flat reaction, interesting. That's pass 1. No connective tissue yet. Just paper. Now, let's line the dates up, because when you lay them out in order, the story stops looking chaotic and starts looking choreographed. February, joint pregnancy reveal. April, Nevaeh, not Blueface, is the one announcing a paternity test. June 6th, foreclosure paperwork surfaces. June 11th, royalties get judicially seized. July, Rela goes fully public with her pregnancy and her willingness to test. Same July, WAC 100 is on a stream making light of Rela's mother. Same July, the baby's name, the one honoring Blueface's mother, becomes public. Same July, the mother in question, Karlissa, flips from calling the unborn baby Cutikent and nappy-headed, her words on prior lives, to filming clips positioning herself as Rela's advocate. The deleted post under the apology in this one is behavioral, not textual. Karlissa didn't apologize for the colorism. She rebranded the target. When the name reveal landed, the baby carrying her name, the tone flipped overnight. That's not reconciliation. That's a placement. And the overlay that matters most, the paternity test discourse, is running on both pregnancies simultaneously. Nevaeh announced her own DNA plan in April. Rela is announcing hers now. 2 women, 2 children, 1 man, and the only person not talking about a paternity test is the person a paternity test would concern most. Wait, back up. That's the seam right there. Read it back. The father is the only silent party in a conversation entirely about whether he's the father. Twice. Pattern reads as avoidance, not confidence. When you're certain, you test. When you're avoiding, you post. Layer in the June filings against the April announcement, and something else surfaces. Nevaeh's paternity test declaration in April predates the royalty seizure by roughly 6 weeks. Meaning, at the moment she volunteered her own DNA to the public, the financial cage hadn't fully closed yet. She was defending her story before the money story broke. That timing rearranges how you read her posture. She wasn't reacting to his broke era. She was reacting to something inside the house that had already told her the certainty wasn't there. Slide over to the July mechanic on WAC stream. The joke about Rela's mother didn't land in isolation. It landed inside the same 30-day window that XXL later reported Karlissa's public support pivot, which means the manager's mockery and the mother's embrace are running on the same clock. One person in the orbit attacks, another person in the orbit absorbs. That is not a family that has forgotten how to coordinate. That is a family that is coordinating on two channels at once, a hostile channel and a hospitable channel, with the target woman receiving both signals in the same news cycle. The strategic label for that in any other industry is good cop/bad cop. Here nobody's calling it that, but the shape is the shape, and the trademark filing sits underneath, all of it like a floor tile nobody stepped on yet. The USPTO record on the Blueface mark shows continued prosecution activity through the same 2026 window. The royalties got intercepted. The royalties can be seized. The trademark can't be seized the same way. It's a separate asset class, and it can be assigned, licensed, or transferred to another entity while a judgment sits open elsewhere. I'm not saying that's what's happening. I'm saying the paper shows the mark is still being actively maintained on a timeline that overlaps the exact months the ASCAP/BMI flow got cut off. Somebody in that camp is protecting the one revenue lane the court didn't touch. Pull one more thread. Hot new hip-hop's phrasing on the seizure, order to hand over, matches TMZ's phrasing that the redirect was total, not partial. Total redirect means the ASCAP quarterly and the BMI quarterly are both intercepted at the source, which means the next scheduled disbursement. Quarterly royalty distributions historically hit in the first business days of January, April, July, and October per ASCAP's published payment schedule walked past him. The July check didn't land in his account. That check arrived the same month Rela stopped whispering. This one's going to divide the timeline. Half of you are already typing that the July check timing is exactly why the mockery campaign escalated when it did, and the other half are going to say, I'm building a narrative around a payment date. Both of you can be partially right at the same time. Zoom in on one line. Just one. From the WAC 100 stream, the one where he's talking about Rela and her mother, the one that lit the fuse. Somewhere in the middle of the joking, he references Blueface driving in circles when he's in his words, being taken care of. Same routes, same routine, same scenery on loop. That's the throwaway. That's the line most people scrolled past. Read it again. He's not just clowning. He's confirming behavioral surveillance. He knows the routine. He knows the geography. He knows the pattern of the visits well enough to joke about the visuals repeating. Which means somebody, and I'm being careful here, somebody in that circle is tracking movements closely enough to notice the loop. Now overlay that with what Rela is saying. She keeps returning to one phrase in her lives. He's ducking. He's dodging. He's not responding. He's not around. She's not saying he's cruel. She's saying he's absent. And the closest man in his professional orbit is on a stream describing him as visible, tracked, and predictable, while denying paternity access to a woman who says she can't get him on the phone. Two things can't both be true. Either he's reachable and choosing not to be, or he's unreachable and the person joking about his GPS is exaggerating. Both of those are unflattering. Neither one favors him. Somebody in the comments who was on that stream live, tell me the exact minute mark because I want to time code that specific bar and the reaction that followed. Search comes up dry on a clean isolated clip, and I want the receipt clean. One more magnifier. The name, Rela Karlissa Porter. Porter is Blueface's legal surname. Naming a child Porter before the DNA lands is not a soft move. It's a legal-facing declaration. Birth certificates in California require the alleged father's consent to add his surname absent a court order or a signed voluntary declaration of paternity. So, either she's planning to list Porter and force a paternity contest to remove it, or she has documentation we don't know about yet. Both are aggressive postures. The soft, I'm just naming her after his mom framing is the surface. The Porter placement is the actual chess move. Pull the raw audio from the wax stream where the mockery lands, the one XXL and other outlets pointed back to when the July escalation broke. There's a moment right before the joke about Rela's mother where the room quiets. Not silence, a room quiet. You can hear one of the co-hosts on the stream inhale a half second before the line lands. That inhale is the tell. People in the room knew what was coming. It wasn't an ad-lib. It was a bit that had been cued. Had to re-listen 3 times before I trusted what I was hearing. Once you hear the inhale, you can't unhear it. California Secretary of State Business Records list an active entity registered under Blueface legal name in the entertainment services category, with a most recent filing that predates the June 11th royalty seizure by less than 90 days, publicly searchable through the state's BizFile portal. 90-day window before the seizure. That timing matters because California law treats certain asset transfers into or out of a business entity within a defined window before a judgment as potentially reachable by a creditor. I'm not making a legal claim. I'm saying the calendar around that entity's most recent activity sits inside a window a family law attorney is going to look at hard if child support ever attaches. The pattern reads as prepositioning. Karlissa's Instagram feed, cross-referenced against archive captures via the Wayback Machine, shows a deletion sweep in the same 72-hour window the Rela Karlissa Porter name reveal broke. The specific captures preserved before the sweep contain the exact colorist language she used about the pregnancy weeks earlier. The captures after the sweep don't. That's not a woman clarifying a position. That's a woman scrubbing a record before repositioning inside it. The archived version of the post reads one way. The live version reads another. Both exist. Both are her. Rela's public statements across the last 3 weeks share a specific tick. She keeps closing her declarations with a variant of day one or the day the baby is born, which all hip-hop captured verbatim and which appears in her own Instagram live segments. Same phrase. Different lives. Different platforms. The repetition is not accidental. It's a rehearsed line, the kind a person writes down before they say it out loud, because they know it's going to get clipped. She's building a soundbite library. That's a lawyer's posture, not a distraught girlfriend's posture. Somebody has already sat with her and said, pick your phrase, hold it, repeat it, don't drift. The Martinez versus Porter defamation judgment TMZ covered lists a specific dollar figure, $123,000, and a specific enforcement mechanism, ASCAP and BMI redirect. Under California enforcement law, once a redirect is in place against a specific income stream, subsequent judgments against the same debtor typically stack. They don't compete. Meaning, if a child support order attaches after a paternity determination, it doesn't replace the Martinez redirect. It layers on top of it, and California family law child support orders typically enjoy priority in the payment queue. That priority reorder is the sleeper receipt in this whole story. If you spotted the priority queue implication 3 paragraphs ago, drop the timestamp, you're already ahead of the room. Different rooms are running different stories on this exact same paper. The Gossip Blog frame, the Hollywood Unlocked, Shade Room, I Heart Posture leans neutral with a lean. They report the pregnancy announcements as announcements. They report the paternity claims as claims. They give both women equal column space. That's the safe frame. The one that doesn't get sued. The mainstream music press frame, complex TMZ, has almost entirely ghosted the pregnancy drama and stayed locked on the financial paper, which is telling. When Complex and TMZ decline to lean into a rappin' baby mama story, it usually means their legal desks flag something. The financial angle is safer. It's court documented. The pregnancies are still, technically, allegations until a test lands. The fan camp frame splits 3 ways. Camp 1 is the Rela is telling the truth and Blueface is broke and running crowd. Camp 2 is the Nevaeh is the real girlfriend and Rela is opportunistic crowd. Camp 3, the smallest but loudest, argues neither child is actually his and both women are locked in a public race for a paternity storyline that benefits the winner. Camp 3 is the one I want to Steelman for a second because it's the most cynical read and the one that would fold the fastest if a real test happened. Here's the Steelman. Blueface, per public reporting, has a history of contesting paternity. He stated on record he tested his son with Krisian rock and claimed the results excluded him. If you take that history seriously, the counter-read goes, this is his pattern. Women in his orbit announce pregnancies. He denies tests happen. Results vary. From inside that lens, both Nevaeh and Rela declaring paternity tests could look like preemptive credibility construction. The counter to the counter. Both women are independently, publicly volunteering to test. That's the opposite of what someone constructing a false paternity claim would do. False claimants delay tests. They demand support first, tests later. Rela is asking for the test now, on her dime, before the baby's born. That behavior does not fit the cynical read. The receipts don't support Camp 3. They just don't. Which leaves the story where it actually sits. Two women with credible until tested claims, one man who is legally and financially cornered by unrelated matters, and a family orbit that just realigned around whichever pregnancy honored the matriarch by name. Now, decode the outlet choreography one layer deeper. XXL's July 15th headline positioning is worth reading against Hollywood unlocks April 27th posture on Nevaeh's DNA plan. XXL frames the Karlissa pivot as support, a warm noun. Hollywood unlocked frames Nevaeh's DNA plan as putting speculation to rest, a defensive posture. Two outlets, two verbs, two moods. The XXL frame protects Karlissa. The Hollywood unlocked frame protects Nevaeh. Neither frame protects him. Read the negative space. Nobody in the coverage ecosystem is running interference for the alleged father. That absence is the story isn't telling out loud. Hot new hip-hop and all hip-hop are running the third lane. They keep their verbs cold. Order to hand over. Confirm the pregnancy. Submit to a paternity test. Cold verbs are what a legal desk sends back after review. When two mid-tier outlets are running the same cold verbs on the same story in the same week, that tells you the same lawyer memo probably went out to more than one newsroom. Nobody's writing warm about him. Everybody's writing warm around him, around the women, around the mother, around the manager. The verbs about the man himself have all been drained of color. Now the Steelman there's a real headline counter-narrative worth respecting. Hip-Hop DX and multiple secondary outlets have historically documented that Blueface public paternity claims about his son with Karlissa Rock included a specific test result he cited on record. If that prior test result is treated as genuine, and the outlet coverage does treat it as reported, then the counter-narrative goes. This man's default posture is to actually test, and the reason he's silent now is not avoidance, but the advice of counsel who has told him not to speak on a paternity matter while a defamation judgment is actively enforcing against him. Under that read, the silence isn't ducking. It's litigation hygiene. And Whack 100's joke about Rela's mother isn't a coordinated attack. It's Whack being Whack, freelancing off-script, the way managers sometimes do when they think a stream is smaller than it turns out to be. Respectful pause on that read. Because it isn't a stupid read. There is a version of the story where the silence is lawful caution, and the manager is a variable, not a strategy. Here's why I still lean the other way. The Karlissa pivot doesn't fit the silence is legal advice frame. Lawful caution silence is total silence. It extends through the family. Karlissa is talking. Karlissa is posting. Karlissa is aligning publicly. If counsel had locked down the alleged father, counsel would have locked down the mother of the alleged father too, because California family law discovery reaches statements made by close family members in exactly the kind of contested paternity matter this is about to become. The mother is not silent, which means either counsel didn't lock her down, unlikely, any competent family lawyer would have that conversation on day one, or she was told to speak in a specific direction, which is coordination, not caution. Either way, the silence is hygiene. Read cracks the moment you look at the matriarch's timeline. The paper doesn't support the softer read. It supports the harder one. The mainstream read on this whole circus is that it's messy pregnancy drama. Karlissa is Karlissa, Whack is Whack, and eventually a lab will settle it. That's the tidy frame. That's the frame the algorithm wants because it doesn't require anyone to think. Here's what I actually think is happening. Strip everything back to money. That's where the story lives. A man whose royalties were judicially rerouted in June is not in a position to fight paternity in court. Court costs money. Contesting a birth certificate surname designation costs money. Establishing counterpaternity, hiring family law counsel, filing responses on time, all of it costs money he currently does not have flowing to him because the flow was intercepted which is why the response to Rela isn't a lawyer. It's a live stream joke about her mother. When you can't afford the legal move, you make the cultural move. You make the woman look ridiculous, you make her family look ridiculous, you get your inner circle to run a mockery campaign, and you hope the court of public opinion pressures her into either backing off or accepting a private, quiet settlement well below what a court would order. That's not speculation about his character. That's what the paper trail incentivizes. A man with seized royalties cannot litigate his way out of 2 child support cases running in parallel. He can only try to bully his way out. And here's the part that makes the Karlissa flip make sense. Karlissa is not stupid. Karlissa reads the room. Karlissa saw the same paperwork the rest of us saw in June. If her son is financially cornered, and one of the incoming grandchildren is going to carry her name, aligning with that grandchild's mother is the smart hedge, it gives her cultural leverage inside the family regardless of how the paternity tests land. If Rela's baby is his, Karlissa is the honored grandmother. If Rela's baby isn't his, Karlissa is still the woman who was gracious about being honored. She wins both ways. That's not a fumble. That's a chess move dressed up as a heart change. And Nevaeh, this is the part one keep going back and forth on, honestly. Nevaeh is being treated by parts of the internet as the real partner and Rela as the interloper. But look at the timeline. Nevaeh is the one who had to announce her own paternity test in April to a public that was already questioning the pregnancy. That's not the trajectory of a settled, secure relationship. That's the trajectory of a woman defending her own story from inside the house. If the house was solid, she wouldn't be the one holding the microphone at the DNA press conference. The verdict nobody wants to type. Everyone in this story is protecting themselves from him. Rela is protecting her child's legal claim by front-loading the name and the test. Nevaeh is protecting her credibility by front-loading her own test. Karlissa is protecting her cultural position by aligning with whichever pregnancy honors her. WAC is protecting the brand by absorbing incoming heat and redirecting it into stream content. Every single person in this circle is running defense. Nobody is running offense on his behalf. Not even him. That's not a family. That's a liability pool. Extending the defense one layer. The July check nobody's talking about, the quarterly ASCAP/BMI disbursement that would have hit under a normal calendar, was rerouted per the June ruling. Meaning, the mockery campaign against Rela's family didn't just happen the same month the check didn't land, it happened the same week. Cash flow anxiety and public aggression are not on separate calendars in this story. They're on the same calendar. That's not mood. That's an accounting event with a soundtrack. Now, some jabs sitting between the existing ones. Almost sympathetic one first. It does have to be humbling to have your own manager describing your driving routes on someone else's stream. That's the kind of loyalty that shows up in a memoir chapter nobody comes out clean from. Dry one, for a man contesting paternity by silence, he certainly is generating a lot of content about not being able to talk right now. Cutting one, when the woman carrying the child you might not legally acknowledge is the one paying for her own DNA panel, the balance sheet of the situation has already announced who's the adult in the room. Absurdist one, at some point a birth certificate is going to hit a county clerk's desk in California with the surname Porter on it, and a clerk making $28 an hour is going to end an 8-year narrative in the 2 seconds it takes to type it in. That's the ending. A data entry clerk in Norwalk finishes what 4 blogs, 3 outlets, and 1 manager couldn't. Deeper mainstream frame staging. Even the safest gossip desk, the Hollywood unlocked posture that gave Nevaeh's April DNA announcement neutral coverage, declined to editorialize past the announcement itself. When the outlet whose brand is willingness to editorialize declines to editorialize, that's the tell. The mainstream frame isn't tidy because the story is tidy. The mainstream frame is tidy because the desk that would have made it messy read the same June filings the rest of us did and decided the safer coverage was the flatter coverage. That's not neutrality. That's risk management. The tidy frame is a legal posture, not a journalistic one. Watch what happens the moment either baby is born. The lab-based reality is going to land inside a 90-day window from delivery for both women, because both women have publicly committed to testing and both are being watched. Rela's timeline is longer. She's earlier in her pregnancy. Nevaeh's landing is closer. Don't be surprised if a private test happens first and the result gets leaked through a friendly outlet before any official statement. That's the play when the financial posture can't support a court fight. You leak the result you want and let public opinion do the enforcement. The wild card sits inside the royalty seizure. If Jacqueline Martinez's judgment holds and the ASCAP/BMI redirect continues, any child support order that follows a positive paternity result stacks on top of a payment stream that's already been intercepted, which means the money math becomes brutal fast. The next phase looks like a wage garnishment fight on top of a royalty garnishment already in place. You cannot squeeze a stone twice. Something in that stack has to give, and the person most likely to lose leverage is the man at the bottom of it. Extending that cascade, watch how the label side reacts once child support attaches to a royalty stream that's already redirected. Any label with a Blueface catalog line in its accounting has to decide whether continuing to promote the artist is worth the recoupment complications when the underlying royalty pipe is running through 2 enforcement orders at once. Don't be shocked when a quiet distribution renegotiation surfaces, the kind that never gets a press release, only shows up months later in a footnote of a Chartmetric market share update or a stray line in a Variety industry brief. By the next 12-month window, expect at least one collaborator on the roster to have quietly stopped booking sessions with him. That's the second-order cost, not lost songs, lost pipeline. Secondary failure prediction on the leaked result scenario. Watch how the friendly outlet that runs the leak gets identified within 48 hours. The gossip ecosystem has gotten faster at forensic sourcing leaks than the leakers have gotten at hiding them, and the moment the outlet is named, the leak stops functioning as narrative control and starts functioning as evidence of narrative control. The play backfires the same week it lands. Watch the second scenario play out too, the table flipper, where one of the 2 paternity results comes back excluding him. If that lands on Nevaeh's side first, the internal family alignment collapses in a week, because Karlissa's positioning has already been pre-committed to Rela's side. Once X hits, the matriarch does not have a graceful walkback available. By the 90-day window after that hypothetical result, expect a public statement from Karlissa that tries to reframe the alignment as supporting all mothers, the fallback language that gets deployed when a specific alignment becomes retroactively awkward. Secondary failure prediction. The reframe won't hold because the receipts on the earlier colorist commentary sit in the wayback captures and don't age out. The residue, the part that outlasts the current news cycle, is the name. Rela Karlissa Porter, if the baby is born and the surname sticks, becomes a permanent legal echo of this whole month. 20 years from now, the paternity tests will have long been resolved one way or the other, but the name on that certificate is going to be the thing anyone researching this era finds first. Naming choices outlive news cycles. Karlissa understood that instinctively when she pivoted, whether or not she'll say, so on camera, the alignment is the play, extending the 5-year residue. Once X hits, meaning once the certificate lands with Porter on it, expect the name to start surfacing in unrelated coverage as a shorthand. Not the child's coverage, everyone else's. Any future Blueface profile, any retrospective on the late 2020s West Coast rap business, any oral history piece that touches the Cash Money West arc. The name is the anchor point they'll return to. By the next 5-year window, expect at least one long-form outlet, the Fader, Rolling Stone, or a legacy print equivalent, to structure a whole retrospective around it. Secondary failure prediction. The retrospective is going to be less kind than the current gossip cycle because retrospective coverage has the benefit of the paternity result, the financial resolution, and the emotional distance the current news cycle doesn't have. The verdict written 5 years from now is not the verdict being written this week. It's colder. One more forward beat. Watch for a reconciliation appearance, Karlissa and Rela together on camera, framed as unity. If it happens inside the next 30 days, it confirms every read above. If it doesn't happen and Karlissa quietly steps back, that tells you the family read the paperwork and decided the exposure wasn't worth it. Either move is informative. There's no neutral response left available. 2,300 miles apart. 2 pregnancies. One name that just got placed on a birth certificate 3 months before the child is born. That's where we opened, and that's where the loop closes, because the person driving the story on July 20th, 2026 is still the grandmother, and the person most silent is still the alleged father, and neither of those facts is going to change until a lab writes the last chapter. If a receipt on any of this lands in your inbox, a filing, an archived post, a clip we didn't catch, comments are open, drop it. Hit the like if the paper made sense. Subscribe if you're not already. Bell on for next one. The follow-up is already in research. Court's out.